Welcome, fellow horror hounds, and welcome to the latest episode of Talk and Stalk, your unholy home for horror. I'm your host, as always, Barry, and obviously I'm in the same venue as last time, having to resort to using my mobile phone, which, needless to say, the quality is nowhere near as good as the laptop that I was using, but I just have to kind of make do with what I have at the moment. So what I'm going to be talking about today is 2021's Candyman. Say 2021, technically it's 2020, but obviously the movie was delayed until this year. Did actually see it on the big screen a few weeks ago, and I just want to say that, right off the bat, this is a film that I was mildly excited for. The original 92 Candyman film is actually one of my favourite 90s horror films. It is a film that I actually do have a great level of appreciation for. I think I was 12 years old when I actually saw it. I was 10 years old when it came out, obviously too young to see it on the big screen, but it's one of them films that actually did scare me as a young kid. And admittedly, while I don't find it outwardly scary now, it is a film that I do have, great appreciation for. Now, obviously, it's been a long time since we've had a Candyman film. Prior to this movie, there's been three Candyman films. There were Candyman Farewell to the Flesh, released in 95, and the last Candyman film was released way back in 99, which was called Candyman Day of the Dead. Less said about that film, the better. I think it was, straight to VHS. So when this film was announced, I think there was a lot of confusion around this film as to whether this is a sequel or a remake. Now, believe me, this is actually a sequel. This movie really establishes itself within the first 5 minutes or so that this movie is actually a continuation. But yeah, I think there was a great level of confusion. A lot of people assumed that this was a remake and whatever. Now, I think this film actually pays great respect to the original film. I'm just going to say this. I really liked this film. I'm not going to say that I loved it, but I really did. I think there was a lot of aesthetics to this film that I really did like. The cinematography is just fantastic. And I think it's a film that does ultimately pay a lot of respect to the original 92 film. At the same time, this movie, I can understand, has proved to be quite divisive, because this movie actually veers into a direction that I think some people really aren't going to be happy with. I will admit, I'm not actually the biggest fan of the direction that this film goes into. I still think there's a lot in this movie to really like, though. The cinematography, the acting, his name is actually escaping me, actually, the lead actor in the film that actually played Black Manta in 2018's Aquaman. I think he did a really good job in this film. But if you've seen the trailer, you've actually seen much of the movie, in all honesty. And I think just by the trailer, you can actually summarise quite easily as to what direction this movie is going in. I'm not going to go into any spoilers here whatsoever. Now, I didn't actually find this film outwardly scary. Like I said, my older self, I don't particularly find Candyman scary. I found it very scary. My younger self actually found that film quite terrifying. But at the same time, it's more than just a mindless horror movie. This isn't a film that's relying on cheap jump scares or anything like that. The original 92 film actually had some heart at its core. In a way, it's a tragic love story as well. And that's what I really like Candyman for. Now, as I said, this movie really does have some very well executed set pieces, I felt. I didn't really find it scary, but there are definitely some scenes that I did find creepy. Now, for anyone that's, Tony Todd obviously cemented himself as a horror icon playing Candyman in the first three films, which there was actually supposed to be a fourth Candyman film. A lot of people probably know this. But basically it spent a long time. It actually spent many years in development hell, and the film eventually got cancelled. It got put on the scrap heap. But with this Candyman, I think this film does pay good respect. There's actually some moments in this film that I think are very well executed. There is a sense of dread throughout the film, and I love I love horror when it's more subdued, and there's a lot of very subdued moments in this film where if you look in the background, you can see a certain figure in the mirror and that. And this movie utilises that quite a lot to very good effect, I felt. Now, for anyone that's, getting back to Tony Todd, he's obviously a horror icon, and a lot of people, Tony Todd is credited in this movie. But obviously the trailers haven't revealed him or anything, and even myself, I was kind of thinking to myself, is Tony Todd actually in this film? is Tony Todd is it going to be basically little more than a cameo? And I don't mind talking about this. I'm sure a lot of people watching this have probably seen the film already and whatever. For anyone that's a fan of the original and expecting much Tony Todd in this film, you are going to be bitterly disappointed. Tony Todd appears in this film for a matter of seconds. Okay, his presence is throughout in a way because we actually get these really cool, I think they're really well shot actually. We get these moments, again, it makes a lot of nods and callbacks to the original 92 film. We get to see these kind of shadow puppet figures happening in that. I really liked them scenes, and actually getting to hear that beautiful yet haunting score by Philip Glass from the 92 film, which I do believe actually plays in about 3 or 4 moments of this film. I absolutely love that score. Now, this movie, I think, has a very kind of kind of simplistic but creepy score as well. But I just absolutely loved hearing the original score in this movie, which, like I said, plays actually a few times. A worry of mine with this film was Jordan Peele. Now, Jordan Peele, I feel, is a really efficient filmmaker. I really liked Get Out. I liked Us. At the same time, obviously he was, I believe, a co-writer, screenwriter on this movie. The worry that I had was, not to go into politics or anything like that, Jordan Peele clearly takes a very strong stance on certain politics that are, very evident in the world that we're in. And I was a little bit worried about being bashed across the head with this. I think Nia DaCosta, I believe it was their directorial debut, their feature directorial debut. I actually think they did a really good job directing this movie. I think this film is definitely directed. I think it's really well made. Now, with the writing duties with Jordan Peele, this film, fortunately, it's a lot more restrained than I expected it to be. Okay, there is certainly commentary, there are certainly lines of dialogue throughout the film that, you can tell it's Jordan Peele making a lot of commentary about the world that we're in. But at the same time, as I said, I don't feel like I was actually bashed across the head with it. This film was actually more restrained than I expected it to be. There's a certain moment near the end of the movie, actually, without going into it, which again was it did feel like it was... It's a very memorable set piece, actually. It's a very cool set piece. I feel like it was really well done. At the same time, I did feel like it was kind of Jordan Peele, pushing his views onto us, etc. But the lead character in this film, not really a spoiler, is actually the child from the original Candyman, from the original 92 film. And we actually do get kind of a cameo of sorts by Virginia Madsen, who obviously played Helen in the original film, via a voice recording, actually. I believe it was a new line of dialogue that was actually recorded specifically for this film. So I actually think Candyman was a good film. I thought it was a solid horror film. I guess there was a little part of me that wanted to find it scarier, but I'm guessing that's probably just because I've seen so many goddamn horror films over the years, and it's very rare that a horror movie nowadays really kind of unnerves me. But there were definitely some moments in there. There were definitely some well put together sequences that did actually manage to convey a real sense of suspense. And overall, this isn't just, as I said, this isn't just kind of a mindless slasher film or anything like that. There are a few deaths in the film. They are quite brutal, but it doesn't, aside from a sequence near the end of the movie, this film isn't outwardly brutal. Okay, there are people killed and everything like that, but it's not just mindless violence or anything like that, by no means. There is actually a moment etching towards the end of the film that, in a way, kind of felt almost out of place to me. I still don't fully understand all the motivations and that behind it, but we're introduced to a character and a certain thing happens near the end of the movie, and it did feel like it was kind of an odd choice. The writing just kind of felt, I don't know, it just felt a little bit kind of forced to me. But overall, I thought Candyman was very good. I thought it was, a good successor to the 92 original. Now, I'll admit, I like Farewell to the Flesh. I don't love it, but I think it's an okay horror movie, and I think it's a film that's actually worthy of more attention. The third movie, however, we're not really going to talk about that. I mean, straight to VHS and whatever, but starring, was it Donna D'Errico or something? I think she was basically a Baywatch star, which pretty much probably says it all. So no, I thought Candyman was a solid film, actually. I'm not going to say that I loved. I know it's very divisive. I know some people that actually hate this movie. They hate this film for the direction that it steers in. Now, as I said, I'm not really the biggest fan of that. But at the same time, they did do something new. They actually gave us something that was, in a way, fresh and new, which is always, when you kind of take that kind of risk, when you kind of make that kind of choice, you're always going to run the risk of annoying people, of really, pissing some people off and whatever when you make such a decision like this. I'm not actually the biggest fan of the direction that the movie actually does steer in, but at the same time, I do respect them for trying to give us something new. And I thought this was very well made, actually. I just love some of the cinematography, the camera shots used as well. Getting to see Cabrini Green, obviously from the original 92 film and that as well. And I thought that Candyman was definitely a solid horror movie. As I said, I'm probably not its biggest fan out there, but it's certainly a horror movie that I would actually return to. And I think overall, I think that Nia DaCosta did a great job. I thought she did a really good job considering, as I said, I think this was actually her feature film debut. So yeah, Candyman, it gets a thumbs up. It gets a thumbs up from me. Some people have asked me, do I prefer this or do I prefer the original? I'm going to pick the original. I do have a soft spot for the original movie, certainly. Be it the music, be it Tony Todd's performance as Candyman. I actually think that her name is actually escaping me now. Helen from Candyman. Virginia Madsen, I actually thought she did a great job in the original movie as well. And I like the fact that, like with this movie as well, there's actually some emotional... Now, this movie does actually attempt in trying to evoke emotion from its audience. Certainly, there are moments. Unfortunately, I don't know why, it didn't really resonate with me as well as the 92 Candyman did. There are certainly moments that are there to try and evoke an emotional reaction from the audience. Now, it didn't really hit me. The 92 film did. The 92 film did. Admittedly, the music played a huge part of that. But like I said, that's why I have a great level of appreciation for the real Candyman. Because some people have said, like, is it a slasher film and whatever. I don't treat Candyman as a slasher movie. It certainly, without a doubt, has slasher elements to it. People get killed with a hook and all that. I've always treated it as kind of a supernatural love story, and obviously it's based on the short story by Clive Barker. For any Clive Barker fans out there, there is actually a couple of moments in the film you'll see one of the characters actually reading a Clive Barker book. And there is actually a character called Clive as well. I think his name is dropped a couple of times throughout the film as well. Basically just wanted to give my overall thoughts on Candyman. I thought it was a good film. I'm not going to say it's one of the best horror films I've seen in years. But yeah, it was really good. So thanks a lot to everyone that listened, and I'll be back again soon.